Crowdfunding for Books. This episode, a conversation with Amanda Barbara from Pubslush.
What makes us really different than a lot of the other crowdfunding platforms out there is many of our parameters are centered around making things better for authors and publishers. So like our funding model specifically, we have a flex funding model. We only take 4%. Some of those things really set us apart.
I'm Chris Well, and this is DIY Author. You're an author. Maybe you're taking the traditional route. Maybe you've chosen an independent path. Or maybe you want the best of both worlds. Wherever you want to go as a writer, DIY Author is here to help you on your journey with advice, encouragement, and practical tips. Because do it yourself doesn't have to mean do it alone. Welcome to DIY Author. I'm your host, Chris Well. In this episode, you'll hear from Amanda Barbara. She's the CEO of Pubslush, a platform that offers authors the opportunity to sell books in 3 different ways, including crowdfunding, pre-sales, and also sales of the final book. In this conversation, we'll discuss how crowdfunding works and when it doesn't work, how to figure out the amount of money you should ask for, and how to build your fan base before you launch your book. But first, a couple of announcements. Number 1, DIY Author is now an app. That's right, you can now listen to and download episodes of this show through our dedicated app. It's a free download from Apple, Amazon, and Google Play. Just go to your favorite app store and search for DIY Author. Number 2, Pubslush is offering you a discount. Stick around to the end of the episode to find out how you can get $25 off your Pubslush book launch. And now for our interview. My guest now is Amanda Barbara. She is the CEO of Pubslush, which you can find online at pubslush.com. And as I understand it, Pubslush, well, first of all, most people talk about it as a crowdfunding platform, but there's actually 3 legs on that stool. There's crowdfunding, there's pre-selling, and then there's selling. So first of all, welcome, Amanda. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks so much, Chris, for having me.
So did I describe that correctly? Is the 3 legs on the stool, is that it? Is that the deal?
Yeah, we really focus at Pubslush on marketing and pre-publication promotion. So really before your pub date is really where you can capitalize on Pubslush and really utilize our community and our platform. But there is opportunity to be a part of our community even if you didn't use us in pre-publication. So yes, I like that. The 3 stools or the 3 pillars that we do a lot of different things.
Let's start with the beginning of the story. In fact, I want to make sure I get on the record that we're just sort of skimming the surface in this interview. But to the person listening, I do encourage you to go to the website because there's a lot of interesting stories and materials on the website. But let's just start with the beginning. The beginning of Pubslush was you and your mother saw a need in the marketplace and launched Pubslush. So my question is, were the 2 of you coming at this from you are authors yourselves or publishers, or what do books mean to you specifically?
So yeah, my mother and I saw a need specifically when we first started in the self-publishing arena. The idea that so many books were being published a year and self-publishing was on the rise, but at the same time, the quality of those books weren't as high as they possibly could be. And a big barrier to entry was funding. A lot of authors had to use their own money out of their own pocket to be able to produce a high quality book. And they weren't really sure whether or not that book would sell any copies. 1 or 2 is great, but that would never, help you make up the money you put into the book. Crowdfunding was also, it's still an up and coming industry. It's taking, it has its own legs. It's famous people are doing it. Entrepreneurs are doing it. So why not authors? Authors are entrepreneurs in their own right. So we saw an opportunity and created Pubslush through that. We're both big readers. I'm not an author, maybe one day, but I'm a big writer in regards to content and have always been involved in the writing space. But really specifically for me, I was more coming on, really to help her in the sales and marketing space because that's where my expertise lies. But we've evolved so much since then. I mean, when we first, like I mentioned, when we first launched, it was more targeted to self-publishing, and now some of our best partners are traditional publishers. So it's really crossed over, and we're really more of a community for authors, readers, and publishers to commingle and exist in one platform.
So for someone listening who, because the word crowdfunding gets thrown around a lot, and it is a very hot thing in marketing circles especially, but to someone listening who doesn't quite, like they've heard the term, they don't quite know what it is, how do you describe crowdfunding to the new person?
What I usually say is when we talk about crowdfunding in the Pubslush sense, we're talking about reward-based crowdfunding. So I hate when anyone says the word donation or fundraise. Those are not words you use when you talk about crowdfunding unless you're doing donation-based crowdfunding, but this is reward-based. So people are getting something in exchange for the dollar amount. So usually when I define crowdfunding, I say, receiving small amounts of money from a large group of people to fund an ultimate goal, and those supporters are receiving something in exchange for that financial support.
So it's not even it's like pre-sales, but there's also you also factor in, like, if I pre-buy at a certain level, like there's different tiers. If I pre-buy at a certain level, I get something in addition to the book. Correct?
Absolutely, yes. With crowdfunding, it's definitely pre-selling as well. It's testing the market. And like I mentioned before, mitigating your financial risk. So, of course, you're getting something. So, for as little as $5, maybe you're getting a thank you note. And for as much as, $100, $1,000, $10,000, you're getting bigger and bigger things in exchange for that dollar amount. So it really just varies depending on what the author has to offer.
And then Pubslush, compared to, and there are several different places a person can go to do crowdfunding or some related kind of thing. But Pubslush, and as I understand it, is the only one that is specifically about authors and writers. And in fact, before I started looking at your site, I assumed it was books, but the site mentions, books and screenplays and magazines, any kind of content works in the Pubslush system. Is that right?
Yeah, we're really geared toward the publishing industry specifically. We've worked with screenplays that were adapted from books. We worked with authors in the past that are trying to make, scripts for movies based on a book. So it's very open. We worked with literary projects, things that are being funded for, schools. We're doing a whole education segment with this one particular company in the next several months that will be fundraising to bring literacy into school districts that can't afford it through their own budget. So there's definitely a wide range of what we're working on, but it definitely is still very centered in the publishing industry and readers and writers, like I mentioned earlier. What makes us really different than a lot of the other crowdfunding platforms out there is many of our parameters are centered around making things better for authors and publishers. So like our funding model specifically, we have a flex funding model. We only take 4%. Some of those things really set us apart.
Now, when an author or a writer comes to Pubslush and is trying to raise the money, what is the money? What am I raising the money for?
It really does range, Chris. I'll be honest with you. Some authors have already funded the whole book themselves, and they're trying to pay themselves back for some of the money they've outlaid. Some authors want to be able to put, X amount of dollars towards marketing to really be able to promote the book. And marketing is expensive. Some really want to create a social media presence for themselves, and they haven't in the past. So this is a great stepping stone to being really putting funding towards social media, growing social media presence. We've had authors, raise money for blog tours and things like that. So it really does range. But the most common things that we're finding is, of course, your cost for production. So editor, cover design, layout, digital conversion, things along that nature.
How's the dollar figure calculated? How does an author know how much is the correct amount to ask for?
So yeah, that's definitely requires a little bit of homework, and my team helps in as much as we can. But in regards to how much to ask for, you need to break down what your costs are. So either you work with a team that provides you with all of your quotes. We work with companies like Wising Creative Publishing. They're a hybrid self-publishing model, or Mascot Books. They're great because they actually help you get price points for all of the categories. So they have teams that they work with, and they're able to say, okay, your cover design will be an average of this amount of dollars. So you're able to actually budget. And that can range, as little as something like, $500 all the way up to $10,000, just depending on what your needs are. So you just need to establish what's most important to you as an author. I think some of these companies are putting in print runs for you. Do you think you need, 1,000 books? Maybe not. So maybe you need to reevaluate. It's really up to you. If you're looking to do more of a DIY, something like a Lulu or a Fast Pencil, both great companies, both produce really great books, but their price points range as well. So you can do a free book with Lulu, but the quality might not be as good as if you paid for a copy editor or a professional cover designer. It really is up to the author to decide what's in their budget and see what kind of level of book they want to produce. But we really do help them, guide them in what their goals should be.
I see like on message boards, there'll be authors that they kind of hear about the idea of crowdfunding and they're like, oh, I'm going to do that. And then they're surprised that it didn't work because, you know, they didn't have a following. They didn't really have an idea. What would be the base thing that I, as an author, would need to, like, how established do I need to be? How far along do I need to be in making the book before Pubslush can help me? And do you ever find yourself having to turn people away because you have to tell them you're really not ready for this yet?
So I think that we've actually created alternatives for people that aren't ready to be able to still be a part of the process. So for example, we have something called a launch pad on Pubslush. So it's basically our coming soon area. You can do that, 60, 90, 120 days before your crowdfunding campaign goes live. And it's a great marketing tool because you're able to actually have a button that says become a fan. So you can start getting fans and people interested. And then the day your campaign goes live, all those fans get an email. So something to definitely keep in mind if you're not ready to fundraise right now, if you're not ready to start crowdfunding, you might want to be able to have a place that has all of your social media. It has your summary for your book, your cover, a Q&A with you, a video, whatever. This is an all-encompassing page that we offer on Pubslush. So it's everything you possibly would want to offer to your reader all in one place. Do I think that you need to definitely have a marketing strategy when you launch a crowdfunding campaign? Absolutely. Do I think that you need at least 30 days of prep? Absolutely. Do I think that you need to be able to, I always tell my authors, write down 10 to 20 people that you're going to go to on day one that will 100% give you money to fund your project. And if you can't name 10 to 20 people, then you need to sit and work on that first, because no project will be successful without that seed funding. And I always say no one wants to support a project at zero. I don't, you don't, you want to be a part of momentum, but there will be those initial funders that, just love you, Chris, and are like, Chris is my cousin, or he's my uncle, or he's a friend from college, and let me help him get that beginning money there. So when strangers or people that you might not know as well come across it, they're more inclined because you have that momentum. That's why crowdfunding works. Crowdfunding. You're using the crowd to fund your project, but the crowd meaning people you don't know. It's all about getting the people you do know there first to help you get that initial momentum. I always say don't underestimate the power of your local community. There's a huge impact in getting out from behind your computer screen and really making an impact face to face. So what can you be doing in your community? I'll just give an example. If you're a female writer that's a mom and has kids in a school district, you can utilize maybe a school newsletter that goes out, a district-wide newsletter. Maybe go to your local library, your local bookstore, and see about setting up a signing. I always say everyone loves a fun party. We had an author that kicked off her crowdfunding campaign with a party, a launch party, and it was a cash bar, so she didn't really outlay a lot of money. The venue donated the venue, so she didn't have to pay for anything, and she got some people to give some raffle items, so she was able to actually raffle things off and make it pretty exciting. But she had people walking around, and by people I mean the Pubslush team actually went to her event. We offered because we really loved her and she was great, and it was here in New York. So we went to her event and we walked around with iPads, and she raised over $2,000 on day one of her campaign, just from bringing all of her best, closest people into one room. She had over 60 or 70 attendees, and more than half supported the campaign on the spot. So it's a great way to celebrate the kickoff of an upcoming book and bringing everyone together to celebrate. It's no cost to them, and they'll pay the $20 to get a copy of your book. So there are creative ideas that you can do if you don't have a social media presence. Do I think it's important to have some type of presence online? Absolutely. And if you don't have a Twitter or a Facebook, that doesn't mean, start a Facebook and a Twitter, that you're not going to be as effective there. Maybe you need to use outlets you've already built. Maybe it's LinkedIn. Maybe it's creating a newsletter list for yourself or an email database, things like that. So there's a lot of different creative ways that you can be successful.
I really love that party idea. Because there's something about eye contact that you don't get in social media. People think a message, if I tweet that everyone's going to see it. Well, no, not everybody's going to see it. But I love you get them in the room and there's eye contact. So you said that Pubslush people walked around with iPads. So is this the thing that you were doing on the iPad? Is that something that like say I did something here in Tennessee and I had friends who were like logged in or something. Is that something that we could do, or were you logged into some kind of admin or something?
No. Anyone can do it. Yeah, we just had her campaign up, her page displayed. Party goers were coming to a table and literally had their credit cards out, creating accounts on the spot. I mean, the whole process took under 5 minutes. And it's great because people are more willing. The reason they were coming there was to support your book. Many people actually got if they wanted a physical copy, she had physical copies instead of, just collecting cash or writing an invoice or something like that. It was all electronic and it all counted towards her campaign. So having a social online presence while still having a physical presence. So it really knocked two birds with one stone. And I think that's important. When people go to bookstores, it's great to sell, 100 copies of your book at a bookstore. That's amazing. But then the online piece is missing here. So you're not getting other people that might not have been able to come to the event to see what a presence you have in that bookstore. So think of ways that you can do crossover. Think of ways that you can really connect with your readers. Something we didn't mention, Chris, which I think is super important for all the listeners to know, is Pubslush gives you all your reader data and analytics. So if you sell 1,000 copies on Pubslush, you know who those 1,000 people are. That's huge. You need to build an author-reader connection and make that reader a fan so they continue to read book after book. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a big reader, so I follow some specific authors, and every time they release a new book, I'm always pre-ordering that book because I'm a huge fan of them as the author. So building that is really important.
That is amazing. So you're raising money on Pubslush. How is the money handled? What happens? What's the process?
So the author is allowed to, for crowdfunding specifically, the author sets a minimum goal and an overall goal. So the minimum is the least amount you need to raise to make the book possible. So we require it to be $500 or more. So let's just say, Chris, you set your minimum at $500 and your overall goal is $10,000. If you got $10,000, you'd really be able to, cover all your costs and make a big splash in marketing. So that's what you really want to achieve. But that if you get maybe $3,000, you still can make the book possible. So as long as once you hit that minimum amount, that $500 I spoke about earlier, cards begin getting charged of your supporters, which is great. And then at the end of the campaign, which is usually about 30 to 45 days, which is what we usually let crowdfunding campaigns go no longer than 45 days, just depending. Some are circumstantial, so if you need a bit longer of time, and we're willing to work with all of our authors and our publishers, but you receive the funds at the end in a wire transfer or a check or into your bank account.
When you look at the most successful crowdfunding campaigns that have happened to Pubslush, what would you say are some common factors what are the factors you look for and say, okay, this one's going to work?
Number one, the biggest thing I look for is, did they use the Launchpad? Have they started to put the marketing efforts in place early on? Did they do their homework? Do they have a strategy in place? Have they listened to some of the insights that we know what works. We've seen what's been successful. So if they've taken some of the advice we've given them, that's huge. Like I mentioned, they're not sitting there with no fans on the Launchpad. They're not sitting there not tweeting or sharing it anywhere. They're being active and they have a plan in place. That's definitely. And like you mentioned before, Chris, it doesn't mean you need to have, 1,000 friends that are going to give you, $100 each. It means you have at least a basis, a starting point. The best thing about Pubslush too is we let you actually leverage the people that you've already gotten to support you to get new supporters. So we recommend, if you have, let's just say 20 supporters by day 5, taking those 20 supporters and sending them an email saying, hey guys, it's Chris. My book is doing really well, and it's because of you guys. I couldn't thank you enough. Would love for you to share my campaign with your family and friends that might also be interested in this genre. I put some tweets below that you can copy and paste to share with your network. And here's also an email template if you want to copy and paste it to some of your friends and family. Would really appreciate any help. Would be great. So now you're helping them, you're giving them all the ammunition. All they need to do is copy and paste. And many readers, because they've already supported you, want other friends and family to, pre-order the book and read it with them. So I think it's really being able to leverage who is already in your network and getting their network and then their network's network involved in what you have going on.
Okay, and then moving on to the second leg on the stool, pre-orders. What is the difference between crowdfunding and a pre-order?
So the pre-order actually came because we were seeing that everyone loved Pubslush and what we were doing in our community. I mean, the benefits are just, astronomical to an author and to a publisher. But the barrier to entry was that many authors that didn't need the funding didn't want to crowdfund. They didn't want the stigma of crowdfunding, but they still wanted to use Pubslush. How could they use us? So the pre-order model essentially is similar to the crowdfunding model in regards to you can create packages, so you can offer more than just your ebook and your print book. You can still have your summary, an excerpt, an author interview, an image, a video, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it can still be an all-encompassing page. The biggest difference is that there's no money shown to your readers. So it doesn't say, Chris raised $5,000 so far. None of that. It's really reader driven. So it says Chris has 10 readers that have already pre-ordered his book, or Chris has 100 readers that have already pre-ordered his book. So it's more driven by readers than it is by dollar amounts.
Well, that's pretty cool. So it's all the things that are cool about crowdfunding, but if I don't want to have that dollar figure,
Yep, absolutely. You don't have to.
That's okay. Would you say it's the same best practices, or are there any other kinds of things that if I wanted to go this direction instead of crowdfunding, are those the same best practices as crowdfunding?
I would definitely say, and I talk to a lot of traditional publishers every single day and a lot of authors, and I would say what I would recommend to an author, and I'm not trying to be biased here, but I'm trying to give them the best advice possible, is you want to drive all your traffic for pre-sales to one venue. So, if you're listed on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Kobo, Pubslush, IndieBound, etc., where are you going to get the best information from the marketing? Because no matter what, you're doing the marketing as an author. I don't care what any author says, unless you're James Patterson or Jodi Picoult, you're not going to just have organic sales, especially as a first-time author. You have to drive and market your book. So everyone that you're sending to your Amazon page or your Pubslush page comes from some type of marketing outlet. And then once you've built up traffic to that, that's when you get, those organic hits and those people that notice you. What's different about Pubslush than a lot of the other retail outlets is we also have our publisher and partner pages. So for example, some of our traditional publishers have pages that have pre-orders coming, books that are coming soon, and also books that they've previously published, also books that are in our launchpad that are coming soon. So being a part of a community, like a traditional publisher's community or a partner's page on Pubslush, lets you be in a more intimate community of readers. So really understanding, if you're a self-published author, which, there's so many self-published authors now trying to really figure out how to do it on their own, which is amazing. But you need to know you don't have to do it by yourself. Who is your team? Is it an editor you've been working with? Is it a hybrid publishing company? Is it a DIY publisher? Is it Pubslush? Who is your team? Because having a team behind you to really guide you to how to be successful is really crucial. So I think, like I mentioned before, because Pubslush gives you all your reader data, and if you have 1,000 pre-orders on Pubslush and 1,000 pre-orders on Amazon, think about that, because now we're letting you connect with those 1,000 people, but the other 1,000 you're losing information on. So really deciding what's the best avenue for you. If you're trying to hit, Amazon bestseller numbers, know how many books you're going to need to sell to reach that, and if it's worth it for you to not know who those readers are as you're building your author career.
Now suddenly I have two questions. One, are we talking about just physical books, or can we do ebooks through Pubslush?
Both.
Okay. And then the other one is, if I'm pre-ordering on Pubslush, is Pubslush the store, or is Pubslush is a channel to get to other retailers?
Okay, so this is actually, I'm so happy you asked this, Chris, because I wanted to definitely explain this to your authors. So we have two options for an author or a publisher, essentially. First option is self-fulfillment, meaning the author is responsible to fulfill on their own. So whether it's an ebook or a print book, you fulfill. The positive about self-fulfillment is that the fee is aggressively low. It's only 4%. And then we have a 3% processing fee. So the author is walking away with over 92% of that book sale, print and digital. So it's a great thing if you're an author that wants to order, 100 books in bulk, keep the sale cost down. Maybe you guys want to sign some copies of the book for your readers, whatever the case might be, and you want to send them out yourself. We let you export all the data. So you just literally drop those mailing addresses right into labels. I mean, it could take you, 2 to 3 hours max, but you make a lot more profit in the end. So that's option A, is self-fulfillment. The other option, option B, is Pubslush fulfillment. We've just recently partnered with Ingram Content Group, which we're really excited to announce. And starting March 1st, we'll be able to actually fulfill print and ebooks. So that is really exciting. So if you want Pubslush fulfillment, it would be the standard way that Ingram works with many other retailers. So if you, as an author, you work out, the percentages that you receive from Ingram based on every single sale, but we would fall into that category. But this is just for pre-orders, Chris, specifically. That's what our focus is. So once you list your book in our books for sale area, then we have the affiliate links to all major retailers. So, we still have Amazon, Kobo, Barnes& and Noble, iTunes, etc. So you're able to actually drive traffic to major retailers if you want, but we're still that pre-order platform.
So the last thing you said about the other, so you're saying when we get to the sales part, I can send people to the Pubslush page and they can find links then to other places. Is that what you just said?
Yes. So that's for people that didn't work with Pubslush for their pre-publication model. So
okay,
if you're an author and you're listening in and you've published your book maybe last year or 5 years ago, and you're like, you know what, it's not really doing well in other major retailers. I haven't sold in a while. You can list your book completely for free in the Pubslush community. So now you get exposure to a new set of eyes, and we're driving traffic to our platform, obviously every single day. So it's a great way to kind of bring a new life to it, get some fans, get some people commenting. So that's an option for you. And like I said, we drive traffic to all the major retailers.
And then also for the selling, I mean, is this, because you kind of have the three different, well, like we keep saying, legs on a stool, is that a sequence that like an author who coming in from the outside could do all three of those? Or how connected are the three versus these are actually three separate choices?
So what we find is that crowdfunding, pre-order, books for sale is kind of a flow, because once your crowdfunding is done, you should just push right into pre-order. So anyone that didn't take advantage of the crowdfunding campaign can do so in a pre-order model. So you're still capturing orders maybe that you didn't, so if, say you're in your last 24 hours of your crowdfunding campaign, it just ended, and then you get, 5 friends that said, I didn't even get to, I've been so busy and I still want to support you. How can I do that? Oh, send them to your pre-order page. So you still have a page that's capturing and the URL is still the same. So that's a huge advantage. If you didn't do crowdfunding and you went right to pre-order, then you go pre-order for sale. So it's either crowdfunding, pre-order sale, or pre-order sale.
Are there any best practices for somebody that just shows up with a book for the selling side?
I mean, I think that there's definitely things that the author can be doing, whether they, like I said, whether they published, last month, last year, 5 years ago. I mean, marketing your book, kind of quoting Hugh Howey, he always says, marketing is for life. You're marketing a book no matter how old or new the title is. It's part of your job to constantly be marketing a title. So I think that being able to be creative and, continue to keep rejuvenating a title is essential. We haven't even talked about it, but we have a great blog. It's called Fine Lines. It's our blog that really covers publishing across the gamut. So we feature authors, we feature publishers, we do reviews, we do spotlights, events going on, et cetera. So, for example, if you wanted to, let's just say, put your book on Pubslush and you wanted to kind of do some promotion around that and be featured on the blog, you would let us know and we could feature you on the blog and then tag it back to your book. And our blog gets, over 10,000 hits per post. So, that might be an audience that hasn't seen your book before, that hasn't, touched, that author and that new type of audience. So it might be an idea for an author to really think out of the box, because it doesn't cost anything. So it is, like you said, best practices. I mean, I think that, like I mentioned earlier, are you sharing it on social media? What are you doing to really get it out there? And if you need help, like my team's here to kind of give you, 5 to 10 tips that might really help your book succeed, essentially.
Right before we started the interview, you mentioned there are some new features being rolled out for Pubslush. What are some of the new things that you have coming out?
So we just talked a little bit about our Ingram integration. As I mentioned, March 1st, we'll be able to do fulfillment. We're also going to be able to pull some previously published titles from our publishing partners. So our site will be filled with a lot more content, which we're really excited about. And then we have some really great reader initiatives rolling out this April, which stay tuned for that. Some really great things coming about that will have readers really excited about interacting on Pubslush.
Well, that's exciting. So for an author listening who wants to get started, what is the first step to becoming an author with Pubslush?
Well, of course, if you want to get started, you can always email me directly, Amanda@Pubslush.com. I'm more than happy to talk to any author that is just really trying to navigate the publishing industry. It is definitely a lot. There's a lot going on in publishing right now, and it's very hard to navigate, who you should work with. Should you sign your rights away, keep your rights? What should you do? What companies, et cetera? So I'm open always to chat with any author that's interested in learning more. If you're an author that's looking to crowdfund or pre-order, you would go to Pubslush.com and check out our Submit tab. It tells you a lot of great information there. You can read through it and get started. If you're an author that just wants to list your book in our books for sale, also head to Submit and you can click on the books for sale option. And if you're an author that's interested in possibly being featured on our blog, you can email blog@Pubslush.com with any guest feature ideas. Nicole, our marketing director, handles the blog, and she is always open to great new submissions. So definitely let us know about that. And you can keep up with us on Twitter as well at Pubslush.
And just to make sure people heard it, the website is Pubslush.com.
Yep, Pubslush.com.
Great. Well, Amanda, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me.
Thanks to Amanda Barbara for joining us this episode. If you'd like to use Pubslush for your project, you'll want to check out their Pubslush prep department. It offers personalized assistance with your book launch, including help with your marketing, your email strategy, your social media, and more. Pubslush is offering you a discount if you purchase the silver package or higher. Just enter the promo code DIY, all capital letters, it is case sensitive, and you'll get $25 off the silver package or higher. That promo code is DIY, all capital letters. Find out more about what they offer at pubslush.com/prep/signup. Or you can look for that link in the show notes for this episode at DIYauthor.com/Pubslush. That's all we have for this episode. Be sure to download our dedicated app from Apple, Amazon, or Google Play. Thanks for listening. This has been DIY Author. Please visit us online at DIYauthor.com and be sure to sign up for our email newsletter. If you enjoyed this program, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Until next time, keep writing. And remember, do it yourself doesn't have to mean do it alone.